in the first half of next year, and once we get our registration IT system, online system set up, at least in a rudimentary fashion, prospective members will be able to create a user account for themselves, get a unique identifier number, and go to a linked website and do the jurisprudence module. So that way we'll start to develop a relationship with many of our future members. We hope that will start to happen sometime next year, perhaps in the early part of the year. Okay, now I'm going to talk about grandparenting a little bit, and this is the alternate process or route to registration for established Ontario practitioners. It's a time-limited option it'll be available for 2 years after proclamation of the legislation. So if proclamation is April 1st, 2014, then it would be for 2 years after that until, April 1st, 2016. The applicants for grandparenting will not have to write the registration exam, so that's a bit of an incentive. We'll have to do the jurisprudence learning module that I just spoke about. There is a requirement called the currency requirement, which has caused a fair bit of concern and caused consternation and debate as to whether it's too many hours or not enough hours. What's the concept of currency? Actually, it's not readily understood or obvious, I guess, to some people, but the purpose is that people must be current in the practice of the profession, in some aspect of the practice of the profession. Somebody who graduated from a program 10 years ago or 20 years ago or whatever it might be and has never practiced since would not be eligible for grandparenting because they would not be current in the practice of the profession. So the requirement is that applicants for grandparenting must have completed 750 practice hours within the previous 3 years, and that 500 of those hours must have been in Ontario. And that's to establish a link with Ontario. The grandparenting route, which is a bit of a privileged route to registration, is not open to anybody from any part of the country or other jurisdictions. Yes?
Just a brief clarification, those practice hours, that's client hours, is it also documentation professional?
Yeah, and I'm just about to get to that. It includes does include preparation, documentation, and there's a range of activities. It would also include teaching, research. It could also apply to somebody who's working within government doing policy work, for instance, and that is something that the other regulatory colleges do, or people who are in management positions or supervisors, shall we say, in various kinds of settings. So when we have heard this concern from people who are not involved in direct client work anymore because they are in other advanced roles or what have you. And there'll be quite a range of activities that will be recognized as practice hours. So it's 750 hours in the previous 3 years, 500 of those in Ontario. We'll be asking applicants for grandparenting to submit what's called portfolio evidence, which will be actually information about your education and training, your clinical practice experience, and other professional activities. We will be creating an online portfolio template form, if you like, electronic, you will use to submit this information, and it'll be assessed using a weighted point system. points for each of those 3 categories of information around education, training, clinical experience, and other professional activities, so that if you're light in formal training, let's say, but heavy in clinical experience, it should weigh out or balance out. That's the concept. We're not, we haven't fully developed all the details of that system or how it's going to be assessed, or even necessarily as yet who will be doing the assessment. We will not be asking everybody to submit all of their detailed documentation. However, we will be asking you, by which I mean the actual documents and certificates or whatever kind of concrete evidence you may be able to pull together to document your background, your experience, your training, etc. A random subset of applicants will be asked to submit that information and or the actual documentation, recognizing that may be difficult for some people, and that a lot of years have gone by, and we'll be asking to see what people are able to provide, and then assessing the overall picture, shall we say, that they present. Maybe I should just, before I go on, and I think we've got about 20 more minutes, is that right? Or so? And ask whether there are any questions about the grandparenting process, or